Hey, gang, on this episode of DWFU, we've got Susan Stripling, and she's going to give us the ins and outs on destination weddings.
The main thing I would want to tell people who wanted to start doing destination weddings is that they're not vacations. And that even though you might be going somewhere really interesting or really fun, you're basically going on a work trip. And it's not a vacation at the beach, and it's not a party in Napa. You're responsible for all of your gear and your images and the work. So I would tell people to really, number one, sit down and think about what they're getting themselves into. Just the sheer logistics of getting all your gear into a bag that you can take on the plane and not have to check. And do you have backups? Do you have everything necessary to take your office on the road? That's kind of number one.
We also asked Susan a little bit about work permits, if they're hard to get, if they're expensive, if you really need them, and, things like that.
I always get work permits. If I'm going out of the country, for one thing, it's illegal not to. And for another thing, it's the right thing to do. And it's not generally as hard as most people think. Usually you can go through the hotel your clients are getting married in, or if they're getting married in a home, you can go through their planner or even just local family members who live there. And it's generally not that hard to obtain at least a temporary work permit somewhere. The Bahamas is like $150. Turks and Caicos is like $500. But as long as your clients know and you pass the cost on to them, you just have to make sure you fill out all the paperwork in advance. And some places are really easy. Some places that you can have a work permit, they don't even ask to see it. You go through the Bahamas and they're like, oh yeah, work permit. Yeah, okay, that's cool. And don't even look at your paper. You go to Canada and they search every single bit of equipment you have and then scrutinize all of your paperwork and then ask you more questions. So it really depends on where you're going.
Susan also tells us a little bit about the pitfalls and how you can potentially lose money if you don't keep track of your costs.
You can only do one wedding a weekend, and most people don't take into account all of the travel costs correctly. So a lot of people that I know end up eating more of the costs than they think they are, really. And it can be lucrative. It can be very lucrative, but it's also very limiting. And taking into account, like I said, one wedding a weekend, all the travel you have to do, just how physically and emotionally draining it is, and how it's not a vacation at all. It's a work trip.